For these notes, you will learn about a new formula that is known as point-slope form, and it's exactly the way it sounds. You have a point, you have a slope, you embed it in the formula, and then you simplify it and you're done. It is a little bit more of a complex formula than some of the ones you're used to, right? So the first thing I want to start you off with is the actual formula that you will have to memorize. So this is another one to add to your list of formulas as we approach the formula quiz in a couple weeks. Right, and here's what the formula looks like. It's y minus y1 equals m parentheses x minus x1. Right, and there's some certain parts of this that come from certain places. The x1 and y1 are the parts of your ordered pair. So you will have a point, and the x1 and y1 are the numbers that are sitting in that ordered pair. Okay, and then the m is the slope. So the ordered pair x1, y1, that comes from the ordered pair. And then the m is what you know of as the slope. So once you have that information, you embed them into the formula, and then depending on what the question is asking you to do with it, sometimes you're done right away. Other times you have some signs to clean up, and then you can be done from there. So it really depends on what they're asking you to do with it and how they want you to use it. Right? So the first thing we want to practice are all the different types of examples that I can show you where the directions are simply going to say write in point slope form. But they're going to give you several different things to start with. They're not going to give you all the same thing. But once we get the information we need, the point and the slope, we can actually go through and get the formula filled in very quickly. All right, so I'm going to start with the easiest one where I actually give you an actual point and the slope. And that's what these problems look like. Very basic, very straightforward. Right? And the first thing you want to recognize is that in your ordered pair, you have the x1 and the y1. So we now have from our formula the x1, the y1, and the m value to plug in. Right? So if I rewrite the formula so that you can see what I'm doing, right, I'm going to take those letters out and I'm going to replace them with the numbers that are there. The first y stays y. That never changes. Then you're going to put the minus sign, and your y1 value is -1. Equals your m value, which is 3, parentheses, the x will always stay x, but the x1 is going to turn to whatever your number is from your ordered pair. So that in this case it would be a 2. The only thing we have left to do in this problem to be finished is to take care of these double signs right here. Everything else is allowed to stay the way it is. So your final answer will be y plus 1 equals 3 parentheses x minus 2. Do not distribute these problems unless it asks you to go further. When the directions plainly say to leave it in point slope form, this format right here is what you want it to look like. Right? So make sure that that's happening in your work as you go through and set these up. Right? So the second one that we will look at, again, I'm giving you another point and the actual slope just to get you well practiced with it. I'm going to write the formula so I know what I'm plugging in. When you get really good at the formula and you have it memorized, you won't need to write it every single time, but until that happens, I would highly advise that you write it over and over again so that you can replace it with the right values. So the y stays y. y1 is going to be minus -9. Notice the minus sign is part of the formula. It must stay there, but you're inserting another negative, so it will change it because of those signs. Equals 4, because that's the m value, times x minus -2. Right, so in this problem, we've got 2 sets of double signs to clean up before we can say that we're done. These 2 negatives will turn, and these 2 negatives will turn. So your final answer in point slope form will say y plus 9 equals 4 parentheses x plus 2. And now you're done with leaving it just like this. So it's an easy formula and an easy process after you figure out where you're putting your numbers and what you need to do to it. Okay. The next problem is going to take us backwards a step. Right? Instead of giving you 1 point and the slope, all they're going to give you is 2 ordered pairs. So you got a little bit of extra work here because we have to have the slope or we can't do point slope form. Right? So the first thing we have to do is find the slope. And the way we find slope is by using that slope formula that you guys are have well memorized, hopefully by now. Right? So your first step is going to be find the slope. And that's where we use our y2 minus y1 divided by x2 minus x1. Right? So in this case, that's going to be -2 minus 12 divided by 6 minus 5. -2 minus 12 is -14. 6 minus 5 is 1. Your slope value for this problem is -14. Okay, so now that I know my M value, I have to pick one ordered pair, and it does not matter which one you pick. So technically there are 2 right answers to this problem, right? But you can only use one ordered pair. So pick your favorite one, again, it doesn't matter, and use it correctly, right? No matter which one you give me, as long as it's done right, I have to give you full credit for it. So your 2 possible answers for this problem, if I use the first order pair, it would say y minus 12 equals negative 14, parentheses, x minus 5. That's one answer. You give me that, you're done with the problem and you're good. Or if you don't like that first order pair and you go to the second order pair, then you're going to give me y plus 2 equals negative 14, parentheses, x minus 6. And if you give me that one and it looks like that, then you're done and you're correct. So either one of those will get you right points and the right answer. You do not need to give me both. I do not want to see both. Just one only is good enough. All right, so let's take on another one that does the same thing. It has 2 order pairs. So we have negative 17, negative 8, and negative 7, negative 4. Again, first things first, we don't have a slope, we got to find one. All right, so we're going to use that slope formula and figure out what our M is. So we have negative 4 minus negative 8, and then on the bottom we'll have negative 7 minus negative 17. Right, then we change our 2 negatives to plus signs and simplify. Negative 4 plus 8 is going to give you positive 4. Negative 7 plus 17 is going to give you 10. 4 over 10 will reduce to 2/5. So the value for M that we want to use for these problems is 2/5. So now pick an ordered pair, and again, it does not matter which one. I'm going to show you both possible answers because I don't know which one you're personally going to choose. So I have to be prepared from my end with either one of them. Right, so if you choose the first order pair, then your final answer will say y plus 8 equals 2/5, parentheses, x plus 17. And that will get you full credit. If you use the second order pair, then your final answer will say y plus 4 equals 2/5, parentheses, x plus 7. And that one will get you your full credit. So please make sure that whichever order pair you use, that you use it correctly and that your slope is correct. Right? Because if your slope is wrong, then it doesn't matter which order pair you pick, your answer is going to be wrong no matter what. Okay, so be very careful with that slope. Right, the very last thing you have to be able to do from point slope form is you have to be able to rewrite the equation in intercept form. Every formula that we do in this chapter can always be converted to intercept form. Right? So one of the things I need you to be able to demonstrate to me is that if you start with point slope form, you know how to get it back to intercept form. Right? And it's as easy as solving for the letter y, which you guys are pretty good at by now. So I'm only going to show you one example of this, right? And then you'll be able to practice more through your questions and through your classwork. So the equation I'm giving you is y minus 4 equals negative 1/2, parentheses, x plus 14. Okay, that's point slope form right there. You don't need to know the order pair or the slope that made this happen because they're giving this to you. What you want to do is take and get it into y equals mx plus b format. So your final answer needs to look like this. Right? And essentially that means that you're getting the y by itself. This is when you need to distribute, and only at this time should you distribute. All right, so after distributing, I've got y minus 4 equals negative 1/2 times x is negative 1/2 x. Negative 1/2 times positive 14, a negative times a positive is a negative, half of 14 is 7. So negative 1/2 times 14 is negative 7. Right? Now one more step that I need to do, I need to get this y by itself, so I'm going to add 4 to both sides. Line them up under their like terms. So now you get y equals negative 1/2 x minus 3. This equation that you ended up with is intercept form for the point slope form that you started with. So you will be asked to go from point slope to intercept. You cannot go from intercept to point slope. It just doesn't work. Right? You have to start at point slope and continue from there. Nothing can go back to point slope. Right? You can write something in point slope form, but you cannot convert something back. So we'll be practicing with this a lot more in class. Most students find this to be a pretty easy formula to deal with once they have it memorized. So your trick and your task ahead of you is to memorize this formula and then know how to use it.